Namaste and welcome to Daily News Simplified, the what, why, and how of newspaper reading.
Now we would be analyzing the Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper of 29th of January 2019, and the news that would be covered today is given on the screen, and the timestamp for the same is given in the description and the comment section given below. And so now with this, let us start with the first article. Now we have taken this opinion-based editorial from page 8. Now what this article talks about is a recent policy of the Tamil Nadu government, wherein the Tamil Nadu government had reserved the post of a civil judge, but only for people whose percentage of blindness did not exceed 40 to 50%. And what had happened is that a blind person who had qualified to become a civil judge in the Tamil Nadu state, but was 70% blind, led to the Tamil Nadu government excluding this person from becoming a civil judge in the Tamil Nadu state. And within this regard, the person went to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court, in the V. Sundar Mohan case versus the Union of India, upheld the policy of the Tamil Nadu government. And it is within that context that the author is highlighting as to the problems of the recent policy of the Tamil Nadu government and the verdict given by the Supreme Court in the Sundar Mohan case. Now you should see this article and the upcoming explanation first from the section of GS paper 1 within the section Society and within the subsection Social Empowerment. And apart from this, you should also see this article from the perspective of GS paper 2 within the section Social Justice. So now let us understand as to what the author talks about in this article. Now the first thing that we're going to understand is the argument given by the Tamil Nadu government, which was also upheld by the Supreme Court. Now the argument given for excluding the applicant who was 70% blind from becoming a civil judge in the Tamil Nadu state was that a judicial officer has to possess a reasonable amount of sight and hearing to discharge their duties. Whereby the reason given against the person who was 70% blind is that that person will not be able to assess the demeanor of witnesses, reading and analyzing evidences, recording dying declarations, or for conducting inquiries. Whereby all of these procedures require a reasonable amount of sight and hearing for a judicial officer so as to perform these functions. And it was on this basis that a person who was 70% blind was excluded from becoming a civil judge in the Tamil Nadu state. Now within this context, the author has given various reasons as to why the policy of the Tamil Nadu government and the decision of the Supreme Court is unfair. Now the first reason given by the author is that there have been several judges such as in South Africa, the United States, Pakistan and in other countries who have performed their duties of being a judicial officer irrespective of their condition of being blind. The second reason given by the author is that retraining and adaptive technology should be provided to those individuals who are blind so that they can perform any function that a judicial officer is required to do. The third reason given by the author is that it is the duty of the state to make provisions for assisting a differently abled person in performing their functions at ease. Whereby according to the author, it is the duty of the state or the government to make provisions whereby a differently abled person is able to perform same task as an abled person without any form of discrimination. And the fourth and the last point made by the author is that the verdict given by the Supreme Court is inherently unfair and discriminatory towards people who are blind. Whereby this policy of the Tamil Nadu government and the verdict given by the Supreme Court in the V. Sundar Mohan case leads to the conclusion that blind individuals are incapable of becoming a judicial officer. And it is this conclusion which the author is saying is unfair and discriminatory towards blind people. So now hopefully you've understood the main points which have been given by the author so as to show that the policy of the Tamil Nadu government and the recent verdict of the Supreme Court in the V. Sundar Mohan case is unfair and discriminatory towards blind people. And apart from this, you also understand the argument which has been given by the Tamil Nadu government and upheld by the Supreme Court for an exclusion of an applicant from becoming a civil judge within the Tamil Nadu state because he was 70% blind. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now we have taken this opinion-based editorial from page 9. Now what this article talks about is that research should be made a part of the curriculum of undergraduate programs within India. Now we're going to understand this article in two parts. The first part that we're going to understand as to the reasons given by the author as to why research should be made a part of the undergraduate curriculum within India. The second aspect that we're going to understand from this article as to what steps can be undertaken so as to make research a part of undergraduate curriculum within India. Now you should see this article and the upcoming explanation from the perspective of GS paper 2 within the subsection Issues relating to development and management of social sector services relating to education. So now let us understand as to what are the reasons given by the author as to why research should be made a part of undergraduate curriculum within India. Now, the first reason given by the author as to why research should be made a part of the undergraduate curriculum within India is that 80% of the students who are enrolled in higher education are concentrated in undergraduate programs. Now, when we say higher education, it means undergraduate programs, postgraduate programs, and doctoral students. And what the author is trying to highlight is that 80% of the students who are enrolled in higher education programs are concentrated within the undergraduate programs. And if research is made a part of the undergraduate curriculum within India, it can substantially enhance the quality of education that 80% of the students enrolled in higher education are getting within India. The second reason given by the author is that the concept of undergraduate research is also undertaken in several developed countries, and this concept then can also be replicated within India. The third reason given by the author, whereby undergraduate students are undertaking research, can also lead to enhanced learning for these undergraduate students. Whereby, according to the author, it can lead to enhanced learning first through mentorship, whereby each undergraduate research student, similar to doctoral students, would have a guide. And this guide, who would be a faculty within that institution or university, would mentor the students on how to conduct research. And thereby, this system of having a guide can enhance the learning skills of the undergraduate research student. Apart from this, undertaking research at the undergraduate level can also develop skills of critical thinking, creativity, problem solving, and of intellectual independence. Whereby what currently happens in India is that a system of rote learning is being followed. So each student in the undergraduate level is provided a certain number of books, which the students then memorize. And apart from this, the student also memorizes the previous year questions which have been asked in their exams. And what this system does is promote a concept of rote learning. However, according to the author, by having research at the undergraduate level, it can develop the skills of critical thinking, creativity, problem solving, and of intellectual independence. The fourth reason given by the author is that research at the undergraduate level increases the aptitude for research-oriented career options. Apart from this, according to the author, the research at the undergraduate level also increases the employability of students. Now, the fifth and the last point given by the author as to why research should be made part of the undergraduate curriculum within India is that it would solve the problem of shortage of faculty, whereby what is currently being seen within India is that there is a shortage of good faculties within engineering, social sciences, medical sciences, and other fields. However, if research is taught to students at the undergraduate level and then again at the postgraduate level, it would become more likely that the students would then opt for doctoral or postdoctoral studies. And thereby students who have undertaken a PhD are more likely to teach and solve the problem of shortage of faculty within India. And the second aspect is that it would also solve the problem of brain drain. Now what currently happens is that PhD students from let's say IITs or the Indian Institute of Science generally opt to teach at a foreign university because they have a better system of salary and exposure within foreign universities. However, by increasing the number of people who opt for doctoral or postdoctoral studies within India, it would increase the likelihood of more people who have PhDs to continue to teach within their home country, which is India. So now these are the five main reasons given by the author as to why research should be made a part of undergraduate curriculum within India. Now let us understand the various steps which the author has highlighted, which are required to be undertaken. Now the first step which has been highlighted by the author is that investment in education needs to meet the world standard of at least 6% of GDP. However, investment in education as percentage of GDP within India is 2.8% in 2018. And what has happened is that this number has actually reduced as compared to 2017. And therefore, it is within that context that the authors are recommending that investment in education needs to be at least 6% of GDP, which would be similar to the world standard as being spent by China, the United States, Japan, and other major countries. The second step highlighted by the author is to upgrade the infrastructure such as labs, which are essential to carry out high quality research. Now, the lack of infrastructure is not just a problem for undergraduate students, but is seen as a problem with regards to doctoral students also. And within that context, infrastructure has to be provided irrespective of the fact that research is made a part of undergraduate curriculum or not. The third step highlighted by the author is to have some established research institute such as the Indian Institute of Science, Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, and other institutes who would mentor well-performing universities and colleges for conducting high-quality research. Now, the fourth and the last point highlighted by the author is that the peer review system for undergraduate research should be encouraged within India. Now, what generally happens for doctoral students is that they write a research paper which they then submit to a journal. And what generally happens is that this journal has a number of individuals who are masters within their field, who then take a look at the research which has been submitted and provide some form of feedback as to how this research can be improved. And after the individual who has submitted this research paper has made the changes which has been recommended by the journal, then this paper would then be printed as an article within this journal. Now, all of this procedure can take up to 1 year in international peer-reviewed journals. Now, it is within that context that the authors are also recommending a peer review system for undergraduate research. However, it has to be understood that this peer review system for undergraduate research should not have the same burden as of doctoral students. Now, these are the four main steps which have been highlighted by the author, which are required to be undertaken so as to make research a part of the undergraduate curriculum within India. So now hopefully you've understood both the aspects from this article as to the reasons given by the author as to why research should be made a part of the undergraduate curriculum within India and the steps required to make research a part of the undergraduate curriculum within India. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now we have taken this opinion-based editorial from page 9. Now as you might be aware of, a universal basic income or a selective basic income is seen as a solution for agrarian distress, whereby what would happen is that a certain amount of money would be given to selected number of individuals across India who are currently in the agriculture sector. And this regular income which would be provided to individuals within the agriculture sector is considered as a solution to the agrarian distress which is currently facing India. And it is within that context that the author is saying that the money which is going to be spent for selective basic income for the agriculture sector should rather be spent in form of public investment in the agriculture sector. Now, according to the author, the main problem for agrarian crisis within India is that agricultural activity within India is not yielding enough returns. Now, what is happening is that individuals who are within the agriculture sector are not earning enough money from undertaking agricultural activities. And the reason they are not earning enough money is because of fragmentation of farm size. Now, let's say for an example, a person's grandfather had 10 acres of land. And if this person's grandfather had two sons, then this part of land would then be divided between the two sons as 5 acres each. And let's say if these two individuals also have son, then these 5 acres of land would then be divided as 2.5 acres between the two sons. Now what has happened is that the number of people who need to earn money from farming has increased, but the land through which they can earn money has actually decreased. And this, according to the author, is the main reason for agrarian crisis within India, whereby because of land fragmentation, agricultural activity is not giving back enough income to feed a particular family. Now it is within that context that the author has highlighted that there are three solutions which are generally provided which can resolve the agrarian crisis within India. Now the first solution which is generally given is that there should be some public policy which would enable some members of the agricultural household to shift out of farming, whereby what would happen is that each 2.5 acre of land which might be divided among two sons can be avoided if one of the son goes out of farming, and thereby the only remaining son then continues to farm on the 2.5 acre of land. And what this means is that roughly with each successive generation, 40 to 50% of the individuals who are involved in agricultural activity should move to non-agricultural activities. But what has been seen in India that this has not been done, whereby the number of people who are engaged in agricultural activity still continues to remain around 70%. The second solution which has been highlighted by the author is of the selective basic income. Now what is being considered is that agriculture subsidies which are given for fertilizers, electricity, irrigation and interest rate subsidy which are given by bank should all be removed. And the amount which is then saved from these agriculture subsidies should then be distributed among a particular section of the rural population, especially farmers, so as to improve the rural economy. Now what this means, if let's say 50,000 crore has been saved by removing the agriculture subsidies on fertilizers, electricity, irrigation and other aspects, then this money should then be distributed to the rural population, especially farmers. And then this money which has been provided each month to these individuals can improve the rural economy. However, it is the third point which the author has recommended, whereby according to the author, the yield of land should be raised by replacing the agriculture subsidies with capital formation or capital investment. Now, what the author is highlighting is that a farm in, let's say, Israel or the United States produces about 50% more than a farm in India. And therefore, what the author is recommending is to raise the yield of land, whereby the production of farmland within India should be increased. And this increased production then can increase the income of the farmers. And according to the author, this yield of land can be increased in India by improving the capital formation or capital investment, which means that more money should be spent in forming rural roads, enhancing digital connectivities to mandis, apart from other activities which may improve agriculture productivity. And this amount of money which should be spent as capital formation or capital investment within the agriculture sector can be taken from the amount of money which would be saved by removing agriculture subsidies. And thereby this, according to the author, is a better solution to the agrarian distress in India, whereby the amount of money which is being spent on agriculture subsidies should not go to selective basic income, but rather should go in increasing public investment. And by increasing public investment, the yield of land or agriculture productivity can be increased, and this then would increase the income of the farmers. And therefore, the main conclusion of the author is that public policy within India needs to focus on replacing agriculture subsidies with public investment within the agriculture sector, rather than enforcing a selective basic income as a solution for agriculture distress. Now, you should see this article from the perspective of GS Paper 3 within the section Economic Development and within the subsection Indian Economy and Issues Relating to Planning and of Resources, Growth and Development. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now we have taken this editorial from the editorial page on page 8. Now what has happened is that the Supreme Court has given a judgment whereby it has held the validity of the various provisions given in the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code of 2016. Now in the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code of 2016, operational creditors were placed below financial creditors to receive money in case of a liquidation of a company. So now consider a simple example. Now let's say there is a company which is undergoing proceedings under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, and this company has now been sold for rupees 10,000 crore. Now from this 10,000 crore, various individuals such as banks, employees and others have to be paid. Now under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, the financial creditors such as banks, various previous employees of the organizations who have not gotten their salaries are placed above operational creditors. Now operational creditors are those which have provided goods and services to the company. So let's say if this particular company had undertaken internet connection, then the company which had provided this internet connection would be an operational creditor, whereby it had provided a service to this company. And under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, the operational creditor is placed below to receive the money in case of a liquidation of a company as compared to the financial creditors and employees of that organization. And within that context, the Supreme Court has said that operational creditors should be placed below financial creditors in case of a liquidation of a company under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. Now, what had happened was that the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code intends to facilitate resolution of bankruptcy in a time-bound manner, whereby an operational creditor means a person or a company to whom an operational debt is owed. And this operational debt is in respect to provisions of goods or services. And as you already understand, an example of an operational creditor can be a telecom company which has provided internet connection to another company which is undergoing bankruptcy proceeding under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. Now these operational creditors are placed below financial creditors, while financial creditors are those which have provided money to that particular company, such as banks and others. Apart from this, they are also placed below workmen and employees of that company. So whenever the settlement of dues is going to happen for that particular company which is undergoing bankruptcy proceeding under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, then the operational creditors would be placed below the financial creditors and the employees of that company. so as to receive settlement of dues. And it is within that context that operational creditors want to be placed at equal to the financial creditors. Now, within that context, the Supreme Court in its judgment has stated that repayment of financial debt to financial creditors, such as banks and non banking finance companies, allows them to lend money to others and thereby aids economic activity and infuses capital into the Indian economy. And therefore, according to the Supreme Court, this is not the case with operational creditors. And therefore, within that context, the Supreme Court has placed operational creditors below the financial creditors within the priority list of receiving settlement of dues under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. Now, you should see this article from the perspective of GS Paper 2 within the section Polity and Governance and within the subsection Government Policies and Interventions for development in various sectors and issues arising out of their design and implementation. And apart from this, you should also understand the difference between operational creditors and financial creditors under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code of 2016 with regards to your upcoming prelims examination of 2019. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now we have taken this article from page 10. Now what has happened is that the education code followed by the Kendriya Vidyalayas schools has been revised. And under this revised education code for the Kendriya Vidyalayas school, it has compelled students to recite Sanskrit and Hindi verses with folded palms and closed eyes during morning assemblies. Now, what is currently happening is that a constitutional bench of the Supreme Court will oversee whether this revised education code followed by the Kendriya Vidyalayas schools violates various principles of the Indian Constitution. Now, this constitutional bench of the Supreme Court will oversee as to whether the revised education code of the Kendriya Vidyalayas is compelling students to recite a religious prayer under the threat of punishment, whereby the Supreme Court will see as to whether this revised education code violates Article 19 of the right to freedom of speech and expression, and mainly whether it violates Article 28, Clause 1, which prohibits the state from providing any form of religious instruction in an educational institution which is run on public funds, whereby the Kendriya Vidyalaya function under the Ministry of Human Resource and Development, and the Union Minister or the Minister for Human Resource and Development is the chairman of the Kendriya Vidyalaya. And the Supreme Court will see as to whether this education code, which is compelling students to recite Sanskrit and Hindi verses with folded palms and closed eyes during morning assemblies, constitutes as a form of religious instruction. And if it constitutes as a form of religious instruction, then it should not be done in an educational institution which is run on public funds. Now you have to understand that this news is in transition. We will have to wait and see as to what would be the verdict of the Supreme Court with regards to this revised education code of the Kendriya Vidyalaya. However, with regards to your prelims examination, keep in mind as to what is Article 19, what is Article 28 Clause 1, what is meant by religious instruction, and lastly, that Kendriya Vidyalayas function under the Ministry of Human Resource and Development. And these are the four main facts that you need to remember for your prelims examination from this article. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now we have taken this article from page 5. Now what this article talks about is that various Buddhist remains have been found in the Kondaveedu fort located in Andhra Pradesh. And these remains are considered to belong to the Satavahana period. Now there are two aspects that you need to understand from this article, especially with regards to your upcoming prelims examination of 2019. The first aspect is various points with regards to the Kondaveedu fort, and secondly, various aspects with regards to the Satavahana period. Now this Kondaveedu fort is located in Andhra Pradesh in the city of Guntur, and this fort is located near the Krishna River and the Gundlakama River. And this Kondaveedu fort has both Hindu and Muslim architectural style and was built by Annapotha Reddy in 1250. And after this fort was built, it was also later developed by Anna Venkata Reddy, whereby the Kondaveedu fort was formed and developed by the Reddy dynasty. However, after the Reddy dynasty, this Kondaveedu fort went to the Gajapatis, then to the Vijayanagara kings, then to the Golconda sultans, and then to the French Empire, and then lastly to the British India Empire. Now these are the four main points that you need to remember about the Kondaveedu fort with regards to your prelims examination. Now after this, let us understand various points about the Satavahana period. Now the first point about the Satavahana dynasty that you need to know is that the main historical records about the Satavahana dynasty is given in the Purans, whereby it has been said in the Purans that the Satavahanas belonged to the Andhra Jati, and they were the first dynasty within the Indian Deccan to build an empire in the southern region, or what was called the Dakshinapath. The second point that you need to know is that the Satavahana dynasty mainly belonged from the 1st BCE to 3rd BCE. And the Satavahana dynasty was founded by a person named Simukha, and some of the important rulers of the Satavahana dynasty included Gautamiputra Satakarni, Vasishthaputra Pulyami. And apart from this, it has also been said that the Satavahana dynasty had traces of matrilineal influence. However, you also have to understand that this point that the Satavahana dynasty had traces of matrilineal influence is currently debated among historians. Wherever what this means is that the Satavahana dynasty had its kinship based on the mother rather than the father. However, you have to understand that this point is currently debated among the historians. The fourth point that you need to know is that the Satavahana dynasty had an extensive system of currency, whereby they used currency mostly made of lead, copper, and of silver. Apart from this, it has also been considered that the Satavahana dynasty also traded with the Roman Empire. And apart from this, the Satavahana dynasty also gave patronage to Buddhist and Brahminical communities. And the sixth and the last main point about the Satavahana dynasty that you need to know for your prelims examination is that Nagarjun Konda and Amravati became important Buddhist centers during the Satavahana time. Now, these are 6 facts about the Satavahana dynasty that you need to remember for your prelims examination. And so, now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now, we have taken this article from page 12. Now, as you can see from this map, Turkey is bordered with Syria. However, the border between Turkey and Syria is mainly controlled by the Kurdish forces. And therefore, what Turkey wants from the Kurdish forces and from the United States government is that safe passage should be given to Syrian refugees which had entered from Syria to Turkey and are now expected to come back from Turkey to Syria. And for these refugees to come back, Turkey has proposed that a safe zone should be established between the Kurdish borders of Syria and between Turkey. However, this request has been rejected by the Kurdish forces, but currently may be accepted by the United States. Now, the United States government under Donald Trump has also decided to withdraw troops from Syria, whereby the United States currently has 2,000 troops which are stationed in Syria but are not currently fighting on the ground. But rather, these 2,000 US forces which are currently in Syria support the Kurdish forces and the Syrian army in their fight against ISIS. Now, there is a fear that if the United States withdraws its troops from Syria, then it may negatively impact the Kurds, whereby the Kurdish forces are currently being supported by the United States. However, they are constantly in opposition to Turkey. And it is a fear of the Kurds that if a safe zone is established across the Turkey-Syria border, and after that the United States withdraws from Syria, then the Turkish forces would get an upper hand in this safe zone. And what this would do is weaken the Kurdish forces in those areas. So now hopefully up till here you've understood as to why this no-war zone is currently in the news. However, what is required for you to understand from this news is about the Kurds. And you need to understand about the Kurds with regards to your upcoming prelims examination of 2019. Now, the Kurds are the 4th largest ethnic group in West Asia, whereby they spread over Turkey, Syria, Iraq, and Iran. And these Kurds mainly speak a Kurdish language, which is an Indo-European language, and is different from the Arab language which is spoken in the Middle East. Now, these Kurds mainly belong to the Sunni section of Muslims. Now, an important aspect that you need to understand with regards to your prelims examination is about the Treaty of Sevres, whereby the Treaty of Sevres of 1920 dissolved the Ottoman Empire after the First World War. And under this Treaty of Sevres, it had a provision for the creation of an autonomous Kurdish state. Now, you need to understand that Kurds are the largest ethnic group in the world which do not have a country of their own. Whereby, let's say, the Pashtuns are a majority ethnic groups within Afghanistan. The Han Chinese are the majority ethnic group within China. And in similar terms, the Kurdish are the largest ethnic group in the world who do not have a predominance in any country of the world. However, in the Treaty of Sevres of 1920, which had dissolved the Ottoman Empire after the First World War, had provided a provision for the creation of an autonomous Kurdish state. However, after that, the Treaty of Lausanne of 1923 was signed. And under pressure from Turkey, it had omitted any reference to a Kurdish state. And what is happening is that the Kurdish population that is living in the Middle East has been agitating for a separate country. And this can be seen in the recent Kurdish referendum, which was held in 2017, whereby the majority of the voters in Iraqi Kurdistan had chosen independence in a referendum that was held. And because of this Kurdish referendum of 2017, the Treaty of Sevres of 1920, the Treaty of Lausanne of 1923, and the Kurds themselves become relevant for your upcoming prelims examination of 2019. However, you have to understand that the news that we're talking about talks about the Kurds that are currently living in Syria. Whereby, if you take a look at this map, Syria shares a border with Turkey, and most of the region within this border is dominated by Kurdish people. And what Turkey has wanted is that a no military zone should be established across this border, whereby this would allow all the Syrian refugees which have come to Turkey to return back. However, what the Kurdish forces have said is that this would give greater control to Turkey over this region, and thereby they have rejected as to formation of any form of safe zone in the Turkey-Syria border. Apart from this, you also have to understand that the Syrian government is currently being led by al-Assad, and the al-Assad government of Syria has actually agreed with the proposal of Turkey. Apart from this, it is also likely that the United States would also agree with the Turkish proposal. And so therefore it is yet to be seen as to how this formation of a safe zone across the Syrian-Turkey border moves forward. But nevertheless, what you need to understand from this article is about the Kurds. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now we have taken this article from page 2. Now what this article talks about is Rajasthan government is going to bring in an accountability law which would focus upon social audit of the government's functioning. Now you have to understand that this accountability law which may be introduced in Rajasthan is currently a news in transition. However, what is required for you to understand is about social audit. Now what is a social audit? What are the shortcomings in a social audit within India? And what steps can be undertaken to improve social audit in India has already been covered in the Daily News Simplified video of 18th of December. And an important aspect that you need to know is that a social audit law has already been passed in Meghalaya. And this social audit law of Meghalaya has been covered in the Daily News Simplified video of 22nd of May, whereby Meghalaya has become the first state in India to pass this social audit law and would include the participation of its citizens in implementing government schemes. Now, the aim of this Meghalaya Community Participation and Public Services Social Audit Act of 2017 is to review the delivery of public services and the implementation of government schemes through participatory social audit. And this participatory social audit would be conducted by the government and various stakeholders. Now, what you need to do is understand both the aspects which have been covered in the Daily News Simplified videos of 18th of December and in the Daily News Simplified video of 22nd of May, whereby this would give you a comprehensive understanding of social audit within India. Now, apart from this, a complete summary of this Meghalaya law and of the social audit which was covered in the Daily News Simplified video of 18th of December would be provided in today's PDF. And you can refer to this summary also to understand as to what has been taught in both the Daily News Simplified videos. And so now with this, let us move on to the next section. Now there are two questions for your practice, and what you need to do is pause this video, solve both of these questions, and wait for 5 seconds for the complete readout of the question and then the answer. Now the question 1 states, consider the following statements, wherein the first statement states, no religious instruction shall be provided in any educational institution wholly maintained out of state funds. While the second statement states that Kendriya Vidyalaya is an autonomous body under the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. Which of the statements given above is correct? Now the correct answer to this question is A, one only, whereby under Article 28 Clause 1, no religious instruction shall be provided in any educational institution which are wholly maintained out of state funds. While with regards to statement number 2, Kendriya Vidyalaya is an autonomous body but is under the Ministry of Human Resource and Development. And therefore the correct answer is A, one only. Now question number 2 states, consider the following statements with regards to Satavahanas, wherein the first statement states that they preceded the Mauryan Empire. The second statement states that it was mainly confined to the Deccan region, and the third statement states that they had established trade links with the Roman Empire. Now, which of the statements given above is correct? Now, the correct answer to this question is B, 2 and 3, whereby the Satavahanas were mainly confined to the Deccan region and they had established trade links with the Roman Empire. However, the Satavahanas did not precede the Mauryan Empire, whereby it was the Mauryan Empire that came first, and after the Mauryan Empire came the Satavahanas. And therefore, statement number 1 is wrong, and the correct answer is B, 2 and 3. Now, there are two questions for your practice, and as you already understand, pause this video, solve both of these questions, and wait for 5 seconds for the complete readout of the questions and for the answer. Now, the question number 3 states, which of the following are considered as aspects of universal basic income? The first statement is beneficiary selection based on income, and the second aspect is subsidies on expenses by government. Now, the correct answer to this question is D, neither 1 nor 2, whereby if beneficiaries are selected based on income, then it is not a universal basic income, whereby under universal basic income, even those who are under poverty and even those who are billionaires would get some amount of money under the universal basic income, and therefore beneficiary selection cannot be based on income. The second statement is wrong because universal basic income has to be provided through cash transfers, and therefore subsidies provided by the government on any form of expenses is not considered as a part of universal basic income, and therefore the correct answer is D, neither 1 nor 2. Now, question 4 states, which of the following provided for establishing an autonomous Kurdish state? The first point is Treaty of Sevres of 1920, the second point is Treaty of Lausanne of 1923, and the third point is the Kurdish referendum of 2017. Now, select the correct answer from the codes given below. Now, the correct answer to this question is C, 1 and 3, whereby the Treaty of Sevres of 1920 provided for forming an autonomous Kurdish state, while the Kurdish referendum of 2017, which was held in Iraq, had majority of the Kurdish population vote for independence of a Kurdish state. However, the Treaty of Lausanne of 1923 did not provide a provision for forming an autonomous Kurdish state, and therefore correct answer is C, 1 and 3.
And now with this, we come to an end in the analysis of today's newspaper. Now we move on to the question for today.